Today, almost all of us live online, and the internet touches everything we depend on. So it would be pretty horrifying if it all just stopped. Across the globe, there are an estimated 4.4 billion internet users, spending on average 6 hours per day engaged in digital activity. In the UK, we check our smartphones every 12 minutes. It's one of the first things we do when we wake up, and one of the last things we do at night. Collectively, we're a bunch of internet addicts. To get a scale of just how big the internet's become, before the end of this video, more than 450 million messages will have been sent on WhatsApp, 6.25 million people will have logged into Facebook, and 5,000 hours of video will have been uploaded to YouTube. Indeed, the web created my job working on Debunked, and I'm not the only one. It's estimated that the internet has created 2.6 jobs for every one it has caused to disappear. Its economic importance is massive. By 2020, e-commerce alone will be worth more than $4 trillion to the global economy, driven by spending in places like China, where more than 1 in 5 of all retail sales are made online. Remember, in 1995, fewer than 1% of the world was online. Today, society is dependent on it. Our power grids are connected via the internet, the global banking system needs it to move money around the world, cell phone networks rely on it to function, public transport, water supplies, you name it, almost everything is connected to the internet in some way. So, what would happen if the internet suddenly disappeared and the world went offline? And could it all be taken down by a single person?
I'm Stu, this is Debunked, and we're here to sort the truths from the myths and the facts from the misconceptions.
This video is made with the support of Dashlane, the only tool you need to stay safe online. Discover for free how much easier life can be when you never forget another password. For most of us, shutting down the internet seems completely unthinkable, but it actually happens more often than you think, just on a local scale. In June 2018, Algeria shut down internet access across the entire country for 3 hours every day to prevent cheating during school exams. This anti-cheating method has been used in other parts of Africa as well as areas of Asia. According to a report by the Global Network Initiative, access to the web was deliberately disrupted on more than 100 occasions in 2017, and not always to stop people getting grades they don't deserve. The consequences of shutting down the net, even for a brief window of time, can be serious. According to the author of the GNI report, Jan Rydzak,
shutting down digital communication often disproportionately harms marginalized and vulnerable groups, cripples the local economy, and creates cascades of chaos with consequences we cannot fully fathom.
The knock-on effect for the wider world isn't small either. Such disruptions are said to have cost the global economy $200 billion between 2015 and 2016.
Obviously, cheating on your exams is a pretty serious misdemeanor, but in practice, governments go offline during emergencies.
Egypt famously shut down internet access for almost a week in 2011 during the Arab Spring. The UK already has laws allowing for the internet to be shut down in a major emergency, and Russia reportedly has plans to develop an internet kill switch, which would take the country offline in the event of a cyber crisis. But these are examples of a single country going offline deliberately and for a short period of time. What would happen if there was a global internet blackout that lasted weeks or even months?
Obviously and thankfully that hasn't happened, because if it did, things would go south pretty quickly.
The only credible post-internet visions are all tied to civilizational collapse, like global pandemics and nuclear catastrophes. The hidden message in all of those scenarios is that if the only way to convincingly imagine a world without an internet is to imagine a world without civilization, then to a first approximation, the internet has become our civilization.
So, in the first few days, panic begins to sweep the world, and people respond by stockpiling food. It's not long before shelves are empty, and restocking them won't be easy, since stores use online inventory systems to keep track of supplies and order replacements. Actually buying the food is also a challenge. The global economy would have ground to a halt pretty quickly. Stock markets are closed and bank-to-bank transactions have ceased. Your card has stopped working, and so have most ATMs, since they're usually connected to the internet. Cash becomes unbelievably important. Let's hope you have a piggy bank. After a week, things are starting to get serious. Local power outages grow into large-scale blackouts as national power grids become imbalanced without the internet to coordinate them. Gas pipelines, which need power and the internet, also stop working. Crime is starting to ramp up, and the economy has descended into a barter system. People start grouping together for protection. Smaller businesses have gone bust. Things are looking bleak. By month's end, fuel shortages are preventing food deliveries, and riots are common, especially around food distribution centres. It's become a fight for survival. After a year, we're looking at the complete breakdown of society. According to a particularly bleak prediction by the BBC Science Focus magazine, around 1 billion people would have died from a combination of unrest, cold, and starvation. The global economy would be back to 1930s levels. For all that to happen though, someone would need to take down the whole web, and that won't be easy. The internet is designed to keep working even in the most extreme circumstances. Take a look at this map. At first you might be mistaken for thinking it's something to do with the human brain, but you'd be wrong. It's actually a partial map of the internet from back in 2005, with each line essentially representing a connection within it. What it also shows is just how decentralized the whole thing is. Let's say you and I download the same file from the internet. That data could end up taking very different routes before it reaches us. Ultimately, you might be able to take out one part of the internet, but the rest will keep on trucking. Even in areas that were disrupted, the information traveling through that section could potentially get rerouted and still reach its intended destination. In other words, the internet is a pretty tough nut to crack. But it's not invulnerable. Take the physical backbone of the internet, for example. Approximately 99% of all internet traffic is pinged around the globe via underwater sea cables, which are cheaper and faster than sending data via satellite. Now you're probably assuming that there's loads of these cables given just how much data we're producing. I mean, the US alone uses over 2.6 million gigabytes of internet data every minute. Surprisingly though, that doesn't translate into lots of cables. At the end of 2017, there were 428 cables doing the heavy-duty work of connecting our planet. What isn't a surprise though, is that those cables stretch out over an incredibly long distance, coming in at 750,000 miles combined. That could loop the Earth 30 times, and means there's a lot of opportunities where you could cut those precious cables, and cable cutting has happened before. In 2008, several cables were cut in the Mediterranean and the Middle East. The result was widespread internet chaos. India's nationwide network suffered 60% disruption. Egypt got it worse with 70%. Approximately 75 million people were left with limited internet access across the region. The damage was thought to have been caused by a ship dropping anchor. Plus, there are only a few locations where these undersea cables rise out of the ocean to connect us here on land. These hubs are also potential weak spots in the internet's armor. The cable hub in Miami, for example, handles around 90% of the internet traffic between North America and Latin America. If someone were to destroy it, you'd be causing a lot of grief to millions of people. Even if you can't swim or don't want to leave the house, you still might be able to bring about an internet apocalypse. Most of you probably won't remember October 21st, 2016, possibly because you were so bored, as sites like Netflix, Reddit and Spotify, amongst others, were down for many users in the US and Europe. The huge outage of key sites was the result of a massive cyber attack on Dyn, a company that provides domain name services, which are pretty crucial to how we use the internet. Basically, every time you type in a web address, let's say www.youtube.com, the domain name system translates that into the IP address of the server you're trying to access. Without it, instead of having to remember youtube.com, you'd have to type in something like this. It doesn't exactly scream memorable. Not only that, but without the DNS, you'd have to remember those long strings of numbers for every website you wanted to use. In other words, take down the entire DNS and you make the internet unusable for most people. The attack on Dyn was what's known as a distributed denial of service attack, where the company's servers were effectively overwhelmed by fake information requests, meaning everyday users like you and me couldn't get through. But despite the impressive scale of the attack, with users across the eastern part of the USA particularly affected, the attack lasted just a day, and it wasn't constant. It came in a series of waves, each only lasting a couple of hours.
But what if a cable-cutting mad person decided to go rogue, or a dedicated cyber criminal wanted to send a deluge of traffic to DNS services across the world? Could they take down the internet? And could they do it single-handedly?
Let's imagine our villain is a really good swimmer. Then it might be possible for them to cut a cable or two. In 2013, for example, 3 men were arrested in Egypt after attempting to cut through an undersea internet cable. They damaged it severely enough that Egyptian online services suffered a noticeable slowdown. 2 years later, someone simply went cable cutting by climbing down manholes in California and managed to slow down internet speeds across the state. But here's the thing about cable cutting. It happens fairly regularly, and it's no big deal. Ships dropping anchor, sharks, and natural disasters have all damaged them in the past. Back in 2008, Stefan Beckert of TELEGEOGRAPHY commented,
"Cable cuts happen, on average, once every 3 days."
While the submarine cable repair company, Global Marine Systems, also noted that more than 50 repair operations took place in the Atlantic alone in 2007. They don't take long to fix either. In 2018, when the entire country of Mauritania lost internet access thanks to a cut cable, it only took 48 hours to rectify the problem. 9 other African countries were also hit, but didn't go offline, which shows how robust the system is, and why you'd have to take out a lot of cables to make a real impact. And even if, by some miracle, you and over 400 of your closest friends managed to cut all the cables at the same time, that's only 99% of the internet. You'd still have the satellite-based network left to deal with. We'd have to get used to 144p on YouTube videos again, but it wouldn't be a total internet Armageddon.
What about a huge distributed denial of service attack on DNS services? One on a scale way bigger than the Dyn attack.
In theory, a particularly skillful hacker group could infect and take over hundreds of thousands of computers or unsecured Internet of Things devices like routers, DVD players, or security cameras to create a network of machines under their control, a so-called botnet. In theory, you could create such a botnet single-handedly. After all, the botnet that was eventually used to cripple Dyn was created by just 3 people. Armed with a similar army of zombie machines, our super hacker could overwhelm key domain name services and effectively render the internet useless. The scary thing is, we may be getting closer to this than you imagine. According to John Bowers, co-author of a cybersecurity study by Harvard University released in 2018,
the concentration of DNS services into a small number of hands exposes single points of failure that weren't present under the more distributed DNS paradigm of yesteryear.
That sounds more complicated than it really is. Basically what John is saying is that the number of companies providing crucial domain name services has gotten smaller and smaller, which means you only have to take out a few key players to cripple the internet.
One such key player is VeriSign, which provides services for many top-level domains. If you manage to overwhelm them, then you make the internet pretty much useless. Now you're probably thinking that I'm exaggerating, but sadly not. As computer security expert Bruce Schneier has pointed out,
VeriSign is the registrar for many popular top-level internet domains, like .com and .net. If it goes down, there's a global blackout of all websites and email addresses in the most common top-level domains.
In other words, websites ending in .com or .net, plus many others, would be unreachable, unless you somehow manage to memorize all the IP addresses of all your favourite sites. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say you haven't.
While the fact that companies like VeriSign are facing increasing numbers of DDoS attacks, which are only getting more complex and persistent, is certainly not a good thing, such attacks are not going to kill the internet. After all, a botnet needs the internet to work in order to be effective. In effect, DDoS attacks like the one on Dyn are a pain in the arse, with potentially huge consequences, but they don't represent a practical internet Armageddon. As Gleb Budman, CEO of Backblaze, a cloud storage provider, notes,
even the large-scale attack against Dyn still only knocked out certain sites for certain people for certain amounts of time.
The internet will very much exist before, during, and after such an attack. It might just be massively inconvenient to use for a while.
Ultimately, a single person could cause a lot of online havoc. They might take down key service providers using a botnet. They're unlikely to take down all key services simultaneously, worldwide, and for a sustained period. They might even be able to cause an internet blackout in an entire country or region by cutting cables, but they're not going to be able to cut all the cables quickly enough to bring down the entire web. Of course, countries could mobilize their resources to cause internet destruction on a bigger and perhaps more permanent level. But as for you and me, well, we'll probably have to think of alternative plans for becoming supervillains. Most of us have used the internet for over a decade, or ever since it was born. In this time, we have all created hundreds of logins for different websites, and nearly all of us are guilty of reusing the same passwords. While the internet disappearing might not be something you should worry too much about, keeping your online identity in control against the increasing numbers of website breaches and hacks is something you should be concerned about. And thanks to Dashlane, you can actually do something about it. You can keep all of your online data secure and never have to worry about your accounts getting hacked by using Dashlane. It's the only tool you need to stay safe online, featuring a robust password manager, VPN, and dark web monitoring. Dashlane will actively keep you safe and notify you with security alerts. Over 13 million users and 10,000 leading companies use Dashlane, and, like us, you can get it for free. All you have to do is download Dashlane via dashlane.com/debunked, and you'll have all the tools you need for a simpler, safer life online. Plus, as a special bonus to Debunked viewers, you can get 10% off of their premium service too, which gives you access to their multi-country VPN and more. The support from partners like Dashlane enable us to keep making videos, so please head on over and check them out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.